Hi everyone, it's Devorah Katz from chalacrumbs.com. Thanks to Adina Sokoloff, who has taught us how to raise some helpful and respectful children. And hopefully we can take some of those ideas and move them on into the ideas of Pesach and the Pesach Seder. So thanks to Adina at parentingsimply.com. And of course, thanks to the OU, who is generously sponsoring this event. Even though it's only 2 weeks before Pesach, I really feel like we're in the thick of things already, which is a little bit surprising because I like to sort of hold off on my panic until a little bit closer to the holiday. But something like Pesach, especially the Seder, really gives us this sense of truly an important moment. We talk often about teachable moments, right? Your kid comes home from school and has just had, a fight with a friend or a fight with a sibling. And so we take that moment and we say, how are we going to use this moment as a teachable moment? How can we get lessons across? And the truth is that the Seder is really all about teachable moments. It's one of the few times that we actually say that ideally, what we are doing is we are creating this scenario that is only about teachable moments. So it's very exciting as an educator and as a parent to sort of bring those worlds together and to say, this is the forum, right? Seder is the forum to truly create this educational masterpiece. Now, before you feel pressured, I'm going to let you know that I'm all about lowering our expectations and creating realistic expectations about what can and should be done. As with any time I start on any of these webinars talking about any of the Jewish holidays, I always talk about the lead up to the holiday, right? We have a finite amount of time. You got a couple of hours for that Seder, maybe even a few too many hours if your Seder goes long, but we always have a really set amount of time. But with the lead up, we have the opportunity to use that time as much as possible to help create the Seder. Now, remember last year, one of my sons was in first grade, and at the start of every single day of first grade, they would sit down at their desks, and one of the first things that they would do is they would count to 100. That's what they would do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the whole way to 100. And while initially I thought it was a little bit bizarre, I really came to love this idea of every single day we are going to repeat this until you just know how to count to 100. It was so simple and so smart. And so I applied it to Manishtana. Right? Traditionally, the youngest child at the table or the youngest member of the Seder party is the one to say Manishtana. Not all children want to do this, and that is fine, and we can employ bribes and incentives and being really excited, or we can also employ the parenting technique that says, this kid is going to freak out if she or he needs to be the center of attention. Regardless, with my 5-year-old, I spend, let's say, 5 minutes a day singing the Manishtana. I want him to get comfortable with the words, and I want him to feel really excited about it. So I have 2 weeks of every single day singing the Manishtana. Every day I explain it a little bit more, and he's getting the explanations in school also. But every day I explain it a little bit more. He talks about it a little bit more until we get to the place where he's truly confident and excited about the Manishtana, because that is going to be his big thing, or one of his big things at the Seder. Along with setting realistic expectations, we want to really let our kids know exactly what is going to be happening. As your kids get older, they sort of have memories and they understand what goes on in the Seder, and we create traditions. But for younger kids who are a little bit iffy on what's going on and it's really late at night, you're going to set key places throughout the Seder that they understand that we're getting there, right? And in fact, the truth is the whole idea of Seder, which is, the order of what we're doing, all of that is based in some form of, let's tell you what's going to happen, right? I'm going to list the key components of the Seder: Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz. I want to make sure that you know exactly what's going on so that there are no huge surprises. Or so that you can say, oh, we're at Yachatz. I've got about, an hour and a half, 2 hours more until dinner. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that your kid understands the flow of the evening, because we're not getting our child at their A game. Our child at their A game would be right after a big, hearty, nutritious breakfast. For those of us who manage that, I would be fairly impressed. Your A game is getting that kid right after breakfast, after a great night of sleep, that's when you want your kid. Your kid at 9 or 10 o'clock at night who is falling on his or her face, who is so tired and hungry, that's not an A game kid. And that's okay. We're allowed to acknowledge that, it's a challenging time, and we want to make sure that that kid sort of focuses in and understand what's going to happen. For my younger kids, I put a small candy bag next to their plate. Why? When they're bored, they can put candy in. Two, that sugar high might be a little bit helpful at 10:30 at night, and it gives them something to do. And again, the whole point of Pesach, why is this night so special? It's special because there's candy. So you want to create a little bit of understanding of where the kid is coming from. Give them a little bit of treats. I like edible centerpieces. Even if you have some kind of centerpiece with fruits and vegetables. Look, ideally, maybe you're not supposed to eat until the meal begins. If you've got young kids and you want them to sort of power through it, put a fruit platter or vegetable platter in the middle of the table. Probably there's a grandmother there also who wouldn't be, who'd be perhaps a little less crabby if she were eating a little more throughout. So you want to sort of offer up that opportunity because you really want your kids to be successful. And that's another thing that you want to do is you want to create what it is that that child is going to do. And it can be something very, very small, like, hand out the matzah, pour the grape juice, lead everybody in to wash their hands, something so that the child, and I talk about this all the time, feels ownership over the process. So on the first hand, we're going to talk about this idea of these 2 weeks and all the things that you can do, which are, you want to pick a piece of the Haggadah that your child, either the Manish Tanah for the youngest or the 4 sons for an older child, and you want the kid to focus in on that. If they're older, you sort of want to ask them, maybe they have words of Torah, Dvar Torah that they want to offer. If they're younger, you just want them to read it out, that's fine, or to understand what's going on, that's great. But you want the lead up to be important. So, for example, yesterday, and I'll talk about crafts in a few minutes, but yesterday, while I was doing a craft with some of my kids, I put the movie of The Prince of Egypt on in the background so that we could reinforce our craft project while talking about the Prince of Egypt, while going over the story of Mitzrayim. That seemed to be a great, and also they were watching TV, so they were happy. They were making crafts, so I was happy. It was really this all-around win-win situation. But if you can take a piece of each day, and again, not in a pressurized way. I am not talking about turning your house into a Montessori school that is totally experiential. But what I am saying is, if your kids are crafty kids, download, here's my little plug for Holocrons, don't worry, there'll be a few. Download some of my craft ideas or download some of the great new coloring pages that are going up. Download those. It takes 2 minutes to click print, and that's the coloring page of the day. So that at least your kid is seeing the Pesach coloring page and not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, or both of them. I have nothing against the turtles. They're good friends. If your kid is a crafty kid, buy crafts that have to do with Pesach. We'll talk about crafts in a few minutes. If your kid is a play kid and she likes to, or he likes to put on plays or write poems, direct their energies into the Pesach story. 1 year, I don't have it here, last year actually, my Lego obsessed son, he made, I had him make 4 vignettes from the Haggadah and out of Lego. And then because we were traveling for Pesach, we took pictures of each of the Lego scenes that he made. I blew them up to a large size. We glued them together on poster board, and then I had him, in his very messy, well-intentioned 9-year-old boy handwriting, write 1 sentence about that Lego vignette. And at the Seder, he was able to present the Seder in Lego. What could be bad? I've had the same kid do the same thing out of Playmobil a few years ago. Whatever the creative bent is of your child, that's where you want to focus on to sort of give it that Pesach twist. Rainbow looms that are all the rage now. Maybe they want to make bracelets the color of sand, yellows and browns, and that'll be the Mitzrayim bracelets. Maybe they want to make napkin rings out of it and put them on the Seder table. Whatever it is that you're going to take that your kids do, and you're just going to give it that little twist of Pesach so that they feel like they are very involved. What we do in our family, and I would say, it's interesting. We have a lot of people for Seder, and sometimes that explodes in my face, and sometimes it goes very well. But I was recently talking to a friend who says, you know what? They just do their family. It's the 2 parents and the 4 or 5 kids, and that's it. And she says she really feels like that's when the kids get all the attention and all the focus is on them. And I do hear the beauty in that. I do hear this idea of really just honing in on your kids and focusing in on them. One of the things that we do, especially when our kids were younger, it's sad to say, but our youngest is 5 now. So now we've sort of moved out of the everybody is 7 and under, and now my range is from a 5-year-old up to a 13-year-old. But when they were younger, and I think perhaps it's something that we would continue doing now, is we would pick one theme and run with it. So when we had younger kids, we would pick a theme like animals in the Haggadah. And we would buy, those small toy animals, and we would set them up on the table, and we would talk about which of the plagues animals were involved in. Or we would talk about Korban Pesach. Anything that we could involve. And listen, frogs, they're so popular. Anytime you put a frog out on the table, the kids are ecstatic. And Oriental Trading obviously is more than happy to supply you with frogs. So really, anytime, we take this idea of animals, and there's so many different ways to talk about it. So the Seder becomes a little more child-friendly. The kids have more to talk about. And leading up to the Seder, we're coloring pictures of those plagues that deal with animals. Or we're setting the table with animal napkins. Whatever it is. So that is our theme. Some other themes, I'm glad you asked, that could be useful is who is a hero? And that's probably for older kids. You talk about what a hero is, who a hero is, and you look at heroes throughout the Haggadah, and you ask kids to talk about heroes. It's a great way for them to have a little bit of a more cerebral conversation about the Seder. One year we did life in Egypt, and we printed up pictures of what Egypt looks like. We did things with hieroglyphics. I think we have a craft of that on the site, on Chalacrums. We did hieroglyphics. We learned about Egyptian culture, and we talked about the Jews in Egypt. One year we talked about escaping slavery. Slavery is probably, more on a bigger level, especially if you have older kids. The concept of slavery can really be drawn, unfortunately, even into modern day. And so there can be some really interesting conversations there. We talked about miracles that God has performed. Whatever it is, you might want to go in depending on the age of your kids, but an older kid or a kid who's very excited, you might want to open the Haggadah before with them and sort of underline the passages that are relevant to the things that we want to be talking about. That way, the kids really feel connected and we're focused. We're not all over the place, but we're really very focused. Let me talk about a few things that I have found that have been really adorable for me in the past. Let me look around. Let's say Postits. I talk about this every year. I'm such a big believer in it. Depending on the age of the kid, but every kid should have their own Haggadah. Even little kids, they're coloring book Haggadahs or Haggadot with tons of pictures in it. Whatever it is, I put Post-its through it with little messages to the kids, depending on who the kid is. My older kid, I'll say, Yael, get ready for your Dvar Torah. We can't wait to hear it. It's coming up right after this passage. To a younger kid, I might say, 3 more minutes and we're going to eat. Don't worry. Or to even another kid, I would say, hand me this Post-it to get a secret treat. So that they're engaged in the Haggadah. They're flipping pages. They don't know that I put Post-its in. Well, now my kids do because I do it quite frequently. But they don't know that the Post-its are in. And it's something that's very exciting. They suddenly see that, oh, wow, there's something here. And they're more encouraged to follow up. That's one. I've also found these great matzah papers. And I've done this in past years also when we've had older people at the Seder where we've wanted to sort of direct the conversation. Not that I'm a type A controlling personality. I am. But I am. So what we would do is we would take these matzot and we'd put something on the back. We'd ask a question related to Pesach. Who is your favorite character in the Haggadah? What is your favorite scene in the Haggadah? What's your favorite Pesach memory? Whatever it is, we want to encourage discussion. Now, again, these can be used and they can also not be used. It doesn't really matter. You have the possibility there and you can scatter them around the table and just, there's a lull in conversation. Pick it up, turn it over, somebody asks the question. In the past, we've also used these as seating place cards. Oh, lost the word. We've used these as place cards. We put somebody's name down, And we've put it when we set the table. This is always my good time to segue into setting that table. I really feel that setting a table, and I'm not coming at it from a Martha Stewart way. I'm not talking about your china and your silver. What I am talking about is yet another opportunity to, one, make this a teachable moment, and two, give kids ownership over the Seder. We spend a lot of time considering what it is that we put on our table and how we set our table. So our older kids will be in charge of the place cards, and either they'll use these. One year I think we made little pyramids, and they put people's names on pyramids. Now, before you get this mistaken impression that I'm somehow very on top of my game, I'm not. All of these things are fairly easy to do, so you don't need to be stressed out about them. Your kids need to be kept busy that day of Pesach anyway, and so this is another great opportunity to keep them busy. We talk about different centerpieces on the table. Either you have your Playmobil vignette or your Lego or both of them. One year we used a lot of small people. One year, I don't know what was going on in my mind, but we hot glued animals together in an animal pyramid for one of the plagues. Anything goes, nobody's really judging you on this. It is all just a way to get your kids involved. And so setting that table really is a great way. And I think we actually have ideas on the site of things to add. But again, you really can't get it wrong. So that's another great idea. I'm going to just check my notes for a minute because I tend to forget things and I tend to talk quickly. Sorry. Okay, let's move to a couple of crafts that I've liked this year. So I've shown you my matzah paper. I like that. Also, there are matzah bookmarky things, which I always talk about making a Haggadah bookmark because kids tend to come in and out, and it's okay. We don't want to make them feel bad for, being children. So here's a great bookmark. Additionally, on the site, there are a bunch of cute ideas to make your own bookmarks. You can give them out. That's great. Here, these actually punch out. Another cute thing about them. My son came home with a great craft from school, and we've sort of changed it up and made it a little bit older friendly. I'm going to show you over here. Okay. You're going to take a piece of cardboard. My youngest son, so my 5-year-old, just colored brown and then blue for the Nile. What we did here is a little bit fancier for my older kids. Also, I will say that my 12-year-old, this isn't his, but my 12-year-old also made one. Anytime a 12-year-old boy will sit on his own volition and do a craft, my 12-year-old, very athletic boy, I will say, is a huge win for me, and he was very into it. What we did here is we took black Play-Doh or plastilina, and we pushed it down all across the page, and then we painted it. We used a paintbrush and put glue on top of it, so now it's a little bit shiny and shimmery. For the Nile, I used blue glitter contact paper, but you could really use any kind of contact paper that you want. Or you can color, or you can paint. Nobody really cares. You just want to get the brown, blue, brown sort of feeling. We put some trees. This one looks a little misshapen. And my completely adorable son drew a castle, the palace, Paro's palace, and he actually made stairs leading from the Nile to the palace because, correctly, he points out, how else would you get in? So he has done all of that. We then add to it... Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. We add a little teva, and we put our little Moshe in his basket. Very cute. He decorated his basket with markers. I was angling for painting the teva, but I will say this is as good a time as any. Kids have minds of their own. It's a shame. Often I sort of would be encouraging to, go in the direction that I would like this project to go in, but the bottom line is, no, this is how we wanted to do it. It turned out great. Totally fine. You put your baby in the basket, and then, where are my magnets? You want to buy those tiny round magnets. Where can you get them? Anywhere. We're talking about Michael's, Oriental Trading, Joanne, any craft store that you're near will have these small magnets. You want to make sure that they click together. You glue one magnet to the bottom of our little teva, and then you put one magnet on the bottom over here. And then using a magnet, you can take your little baby Moshe down the river. It's a great project. It kept my kids busy for about 40 minutes yesterday. It doesn't need to be complicated. It can be really as simple as a piece of paper, color brown, blue, brown, and some magnets. You don't even need the magnets, but for older kids, it really worked very well. Today's project for us will involve mosaic tiles, these rocks, and we're going to be making pyramids. Again, it's not hard to find a template for pyramids. I'm actually fairly certain there's one on our site. And you're going to make these pyramids, either mosaicing them, so you need a little bit of a stronger paper, you need like a cardboard. And the other thing that I'm liking today is this, it's colored stones. So we're going to be taking the brown. Where's my brown? We're going to be taking the brown, and we're going to be taking the yellow, and we're going to be doing one side of the pyramid that way. So pyramid in a couple of different ways. Okay, one or two more things before my time is done. So we have those crafts. The last craft is, and I would say this, with each kid, I like to pick one major thing to do. So also depending on who the kid is and what their interests are, but I like to pick one thing. And so I would say last year with one of my kids, this was with my first grader, we scrapbooked the makot. It was an adorable project. He could not have been cuter, where he took each makkah and then he wrote in his take on every plague that there was. It was great. He was very, very excited about it. He presented it. Also, it traveled with us, which was also significant. But the idea behind it is that walking into Seder, everybody sort of feels battle ready. So in addition to all of the cooking and all of the cleaning, which might not always be as rewarding as it could be, we want to create this scenario where every kid comes in very, very excited about one thing. So to recap, they go into the Seder knowing what is going to happen. You know, Abba is going to do this, Grandpa is going to do that, then you are going to do this, and I am going to do that, so that they have a game plan. All right, think of those football coaches that make X's and O's for things that I don't understand. That's what we want to have for them. That's the scenario. We want them to go in knowing what's going to happen. Then we want them to know what they are going to do, what their contributions are. You're going to say Manishtana. You're going to talk about the 4 boys. You are going to talk about the plagues. For older kids, you want to perhaps develop a bigger question, a bigger themed question that they can focus on throughout the night. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes I match up an older member of the family with a younger member of the family. If you've got older cousins coming or aunts and uncles, grandparents, maybe have them have a one-off camera or Skype conversation about something that they are going to present together. The more invested everybody is in the Seder, really the more significant it becomes. Having said all of that, we are essentially bringing young children to a late night party where everybody talks a lot, and the food comes out really, really late when no one is hungry. So we sort of need to take that into account when we talk about our kids, and we need to help them be the best child they can be at 11:30 at night. And part of that help is creating, again, realistic expectations. It's not about, and I remember years where I put so much time and effort into creating and molding this perfect Seder, and my kids were out like a light before anything happened. And I really sort of had to deal with that disappointment. So part of the significance of the 2 weeks leading up to Pesach is that, you know what, when somebody falls asleep at 9:15 at night, at least they sort of made it to that idea, to that point, and at least they, in their minds, have had some connection to the Seder. I think that's what's significant. Essentially, when we step back from all of the external pressures of Seder, it really is a time of family getting together, of sitting around a table, of talking and of interacting with each other, and of focusing in on past histories, past traditions. And that's what makes it so important. And regardless of what happens, how it happens, when it happens, it can be very, very successful. I wish you all a wonderful Seder. Of course, Chalacrums is there to help you out. Devorah, k@gmail.com, is always happy to take any comments or questions you might have. Thanks to Adina. Thanks, of course, to the OU. And have a wonderful, wonderful Pesach. Bye.